I cannot believe that the government of India can just blatantly lie to us, the citizens of India, and say they did not say that it's an experiment.
Biggest problem here is not the word experimentation. Mr. Tutu Dhawan, do you feel that the biggest problem here is the ambiguity around the ethanol project and the lack of transparency around the various studies which have been done in our country?
As far as the experiments and the test reports and the public awareness has not been there as before implementing the usage of ethanol.
I mean, I can only add, are we a nation of lab rats? That the experiment is happening on us live. Hello and welcome. You're watching me, Sanket Upadhyay, on the Federal. The show is called AI with Sanket. This is the AI of news because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. There is a lot of talk about whether ethanol and its policy has been implemented properly or not. And when this matter reached the Supreme Court, the government reportedly said that ethanol in this country is an experiment, the results of which will be known in a year. Subsequently, when there was a huge argument and uproar over whether an experiment is being carried out on 140 crore Indians, are we essentially lab rats with very little to know about the pros and cons of ethanol? The government issued a clarification saying that the Attorney General never used the words experiment. Whether this is an experiment or not, there is a lot of ambiguity around ethanol. And this is the undeniable fact, which is why I've got two experts. Tahseen Poonawalla is a known political analyst and he is about to launch a protest at Jantar Mantar on the 5th of July against ethanol. It'll be interesting to hear his views why. And of course, Tutu Dhawan, who's an extremely familiar face, auto expert. He'll be sharing his views and his vast knowledge and experience in automobiles in just a short moment. Tahseen, I would like to come to you first and want to know from you, how do you respond to what the government has said?
Thank you, Sanket, once again for having me on your show. There are two aspects to this. I cannot believe that the government of India can just blatantly lie to us, the citizens of India, and say they did not say that it's an experiment. I have put out a video. A journalist who you and I, both of us know, sent me that video, the clip of the video, where the Honorable Attorney General, R. Venkatramani ji, did say that the ethanol 20 blending process is an experiment and the results will come next year to know whether we require more supply or less supply based on it. I put out that clip sent to me by journalists. What the government forgot last night when they got the backlash was courts today are live streamed and everything is recorded. The government continues to lie to us. That's the problem. Honorable Minister Nitin Gadkari ji just gave an interview to senior journalist Deepak Chaurasia sir. He's called all of us anti-nationals. He said we've got funding from petroleum companies. He said we have a vested interest in petrol being imported. I have said I'm ready for a forensic audit of my accounts by Enforcement Directorate and a public lie detector test if anyone has funded me. But put the documents out. Why are they not putting documents out? For all you know, I may be wrong. For all you know, Sanket, most people may be wrong. We can only judge when the documents are in public domain. This continuously lying to us, this continuously making a fool out of us, this continuously treating us like we are some kind of rats, that we don't deserve to be on the same table as the government, that we are some kind of fools, is irritating and is now pissing off. Talk to us like equals. All we are asking is for a seat on the table to talk to the government.
Okay, Mr. Tutu Dhawan, you see the government on one hand says that this is an experiment which will very naturally bring in a sentiment whether we are essentially lab rats. Our cars 5 years ago were not E20 compliant, so any car 5 years or older will essentially be running on unfavorable or undesirable fuel. It will still run, but that fuel, the engine and the car is not made for this particular type of orientation of fuel. The biggest problem here is not the word experimentation. Mr. Tutu Dhawan, do you feel that the biggest problem here is the ambiguity around the ethanol project and the lack of transparency around the various studies which have been done in our country? For instance, the ARAI report is still not public. So public trust is not there. The government wants everyone to take its word that ethanol is the best. What is your view?
I agree with you 100%. As far as the experiments and the test reports and the public awareness has not been there as before implementing the usage of ethanol. If you remember, even about a decade and a half, 2 decades back, biodiesel was also introduced through Jetropa plant, and it was not very successful, although there were some tests done in the labs and on road also. But nevertheless, it never became a reality that people who had transformed their agricultural lands into Jetropa farming and then supplying the products to the government. So this one, of course, has been taken, the public has been taken for a little bit of a ride, public surprise, that suddenly, all of a sudden, the ethanol has been introduced forcibly. Now, even if you had to introduce ethanol, the availability of petrol, 100% petrol, should have always been there. Why do you want to force a consumer to have ethanol blend petrol when in certain cases, which are, I would say, at DS4 and below technology vehicles, they are definitely going to be harmed to the maximum. And in fact, some of the earlier brands, what we call them vintage cars, which are going to be 30, 40 years and before, it's like murder for them. The minute you use that petrol and you leave those vehicles standing for 6 months or 1 year, because in any case those vehicles are not daily driven vehicles, they will seize, the engine will seize 100% with all that hygroscopic stuff lying in the petrol itself. So all said and done, yes, the public should have been taken into confidence, and people who want to use ethanol, first of all, they should be given some rebate in using it, and secondly, those who don't want to use ethanol blend, they should have the freedom of buying any fuel on the market. Now, when you are talking of high efficiency vehicles like high speed BMWs, Rolls Royces, the Moghnis, Ferraris, and the like, they obviously cannot use this, and for them it's become a business. All the manufacturers are now trying to sell additives to the owners of those cars, which cost maybe 3 lakhs, 3 crores, 4 crores, and up to 10 crores. For them, it is big business. Trying to sell additives at maybe 1 lakh rupees per month, or maybe even more, depending on the consumption. So all these things, it's really, I would say, for a consumer, he's on a crossroad whether he should use this or he should not use. And then even if he have to use ethanol, what is it and how is it going to affect the usability of their vehicles and how durability as well.
That's right, Mr. Tutu Dhawan. But Tahseen, just quickly coming back to you, you see, when these questions are asked of the government, they say that there is a very successful implementation of this blending model available in Brazil. The one thing, as Mr. Tutu Dhawan also mentioned, is that Brazil's model has not been completely implemented in this country, because in Brazil, as we all are aware, you have a E0 to E100 flexibility. You can choose, you have options to choose from, fuel options to choose from. In India, I do not have that option on a very many large number of petrol pumps. The E0 fuel, which basically means pure petrol, I just checked on Google, is available on a select few petrol pumps at an exorbitantly high price, 160 rupees a litre plus. So you have kept pure petrol out of bounds for people. almost discouraging them not to use it, and their only option is to go for this blended module that you are implementing, almost thrusting it down the throats of people and their vehicles.
Yes, Sanket. First of all, it is absolute nonsense when the government says they are implementing the Brazil or the United States model. Brazil started its policy in the 1970s. It first created a 360-degree infrastructure for people to move on to this policy. And like you rightly said, and Sir earlier rightly said, in Brazil, all options are available based on your requirement. Similarly, in the United States, it's E10, E15, E20, and similarly, all models are available. The unblended fuel in the United States of America is on average 109 rupees a liter compared to 165 rupees a liter out here in India, which is also not available everywhere. So you have to go to a select few pumps where also it's not available. So you're forcing this down our throats. This is our cars. This is the first part of it. So it is absolute ridiculous to say we are doing the Brazilian model or the United States of America model. Secondly, what is the per capita income of United States of America and what is the per capita income of India? Let's look at that and then talk. Secondly, Ethanol 20 policy by the Niti Aayog was supposed to be implemented by 2030. This was advanced to 2025. 2023, suddenly they started, 2025, they implemented it. Whereas even today, 80% of the vehicles are non-compliant with ethanol 20 blended fuel. None of these reports are put in public domain. Now they want to rush to ethanol 30 when all automobile manufacturers, including last time the BMW chairperson for India, the president for India, as well as the CEO said that we are not prepared for ethanol 30. So all that this government wants to do is force its agenda. But most importantly, let me take your viewers down another lie the government tells us. The government tells us ethanol blending saves us forex. That too is not true. While it is true about 40,000 crore rupees per year is saved, that part is true. What the government doesn't account for is for example, in corn byproduct, what is our forex going out? A product that until only last year we used to export, this year we will import and we'll import it from the United States of America. What is the cost on our food security? What is the cost on rice being diverted from the PDS scheme? What is the cost on the environment? We've seen ethanol factories on the water reserves. None of this is being accounted for. And the minute you talk about this, you're called anti-national, Pakistan funded, Soros funded. You're called as if you're out here to harm the nation. They don't want to discuss the policy comprehensively. Any policy requires a 360-degree discussion for the people of India. Let me tell you one more thing. Corn, we used to have surplus corn production. Its byproduct we used to export to South Asian countries. On 6th February, the White House press release, when the Indo-US trade deal reached a conclusion, said that India will import the corn byproduct for its livestock feed. Obviously, people were surprised because we were exporting this. Feb 7, Piyush Goyal has a press conference. He says, look, we have a shortage of this in India, the livestock feed, and therefore for our birds and animals, we require this feed. But we were exporting this. So we are now importing genetically modified corn byproduct, DDGS, into India because the corn meant for India is being diverted to ethanol. And what is the result? 2017-18, 0% corn was diverted. Last year, 45% of the corn grown in India. Second comparison. Because farmers are moving to corn or sugarcane or rice, what they aren't growing is other vegetables. And therefore, you're importing vegetable oils. What about the forex going in that? Who's done this comparative studies? Where are these comparative studies? Therefore, I'm saying this government is conning us. A government that can lie. That in Supreme Court, they said that there is no experiment, but actually the video comes out. Imagine the lies that we're being fed on.
Mr. Tutu Dhawan, do you feel that the bare minimum right now, I'm willing to accept the great benefits of ethanol in my car also, provided there is a very open, clear study which is peer reviewed, which is made available to the public, it enjoys the might of public scrutiny, and then the policy is implemented. And to that effect, had this E20 policy been implemented by 2030, you would have given the requisite amount of time for old cars to be phased out and new cars to come in that would have been more compliant. By hurrying up you have created a situation where your old cars will be asked to gulp this new fuel, whereas they are not even ready for it. So, what is being sold by the government as a great achievement, that we did it in 5 years instead of 10, is actually a curse.
Well, I agree with you 100% as far as this argument goes. In fact, my study on this is that the government should have done all its tests and brought everything on board. Let the public be aware of this situation and let the public know what are the after effects of blending and non-blending. Besides that, I mean, the fuel also being available on the full range, whether you want to use a ethanol blend fuel or you don't want to use it, you should have the choice even before, even after having this fuel in launch. But my other point is that we have not done any test reports. If you ask me honestly about my opinion, even I don't know. You know, I am also, it's all a hearsay as to do your own testing, do your own average testing, do your own testing of the engine performance, 0 to 100 performance. Is that, are you running a laboratory on the road that you would be doing all these things yourself and then making the media wise on social activities? You know, you are going and giving your own gyan to everybody. In this particular case, you are actually making a mess of it all by not informing the public of what the reality is of blending this fuel or not. If you have taken the confidence of the consumer, you may not have come to a situation like this that people are going against, and we would not be looking at it with a negative mind in their thoughts.
Tahseen, just quickly coming back to you, you will be leading a protest on the 5th of July at Jantar Mantar, which is also incidentally a very famous site in Delhi for, hosting or conducting protests. One recent protest which is going on is the one by Cockroach Janta Party. I just want to know from you what really are going to be your demands, and more importantly, this country needs solutions. Certain problems have emerged, but very few people talk about solutions. And I'll ask this question of Mr. Tutu Dhawan also. What can I do as an owner, say, of a 5 or 7-year-old petrol car, or suppose if I have a 14-year-old bike or a car which I want to retain because there may be some emotional attachment, what do I do? So I'll come and ask you all these solutions also. Tahseen, first, what's 5th of July all about?
On a side note, if you want to retain your car, just make sure you lock it up and keep it, or your bike for sentimental reasons, because my car, which I retained without an engine, by the way, in which my dog had passed away, these scamsters from the transport department and these private vendors came and picked it up. They smashed the windows, pulled it out of my private property and took it. Luckily, I saw it on the road, and again, me, being that aggressive, I could get my car back. But most people can't do that. People asked me to go to court. I didn't go to court. I went to the transport guys, to the vendor, and I picked up the car and I came back. But this is the kind of scam going on. And he told me that the money from that, just to tell you the scam in that, they don't even dispose of those cars. They give you 10, 15,000 rupees or 20,000 for the steel. They refurbish those cars and they sell it in villages and towns where the 10-year deadline does not exist. It happened to me, and the video is all over. But let me come to the larger issue out here. 5th July at Jantar Mantar, we are protesting the mandatory ethanol blending policy for 20. We are not against ethanol blending 5 or 10. We are not against it. We are for it. We think it should happen. We think it should happen in a phased manner. We think we should be made partners. We think all reports should be put publicly. And we think that the report for the deadline for 2030 should not be preponed. Cars that cannot take ethanol 20, as a user manual say, should have a choice of what fuel they want to pick. At the same time, not just cars, bike. At the same time, cars and bikes that want to fill pure petrol must get it at a lower rate. Hopefully, petrol comes under GST along with fuel. That's a separate debate. Most importantly, what we are asking for is complete transparency, complete accountability, and a 360-degree infrastructure before implementing projects so people are not harassed. We're getting several reports of cars, of bikes being damaged. Please understand, Sanket, and Tutu sir will agree with me that your car is the second most important or expensive asset in Indian buys. A bike is very, very expensive for most Indians even today to buy, who have a salary of 15, 18, 19,000 in urban areas. They take loans and they buy a bike. It is not the government's father's property to do experiments on anything with regards to my property. And if you want to do experiments, please take my consent. I am not a lab rat. I am not somebody who's given you that consent. I also am a part of this great nation. I also understand forex has to be saved. I also understand the environment has to be saved. Thirdly, it is disgusting that netas are in the sugar business. Therefore, neither the government nor the opposition is opposing it. Why should I just target one political party or Nitin sir on this? Let's talk about the opposition. Who runs the sugar mills in Maharashtra? Sharad Pawarji. Who owns all the sugar mills in Karnataka? The opposition, the party I vote for. Who in Western UP, it's all with BJP or whichever party is in power, those people shift there. The entire sugar lobby is controlled by politicians. So they are the ones who benefit. What is the money the farmer gets? 3 rupees 65 paisa per kg of sugar cane. You are getting ethanol blended fuel at 102 rupees. Farmers getting 3 rupees 65 paisa. Who's making the beach ka money? These politicians. For what? And they're experimenting on us. Does Nitin Gadkari ji drive a car beyond 2022? Do any of these babus drive? Is it their money? It is our tax money they enjoy. They completely make policies and they destroy our vehicles. Who's given them the right to do it? Why is this happening? And you really want to save 3 lakh crores every year? Make your roads decent, not even world class. Remove traffic jams, remove blockages. You will save 3 lakh crore rupees every year. Who will do that? Which contractor and contractors hand in glove with politicians? That's why infrastructure is so bad. That is the problem. They don't want to do that part. They just want to experiment on us and then lie to us.
Tutu sir, my final question to you. Do you feel that these experiments with ethanol, and these are words I'm using of the government reportedly using in the Supreme Court, experiments with ethanol, laboratory on the road, and building a nation of lab rats? I want to know from you that in a situation like this, what would you advise to people who have cars just 5 or 7 years old? What do they do?
You see, as far as that vehicles are concerned, from 2020 onwards, the manufacturers started looking at having ethanol into petrol. So they started their modifications in that time. Obviously, I mean, it couldn't have been done 100% to perfection. But by 2023, finally they were able to have a flex engine ready for them that they could use, and that they finally started giving to the public. Now, as far as the older engines are concerned, older cars are concerned, you have no choice but to look after them yourself, because this is definitely going to be like murder. You know, an old car with ethanol 30 or 20 sitting inside their tank is not only going to harm the fuel tank or anything, but also all the other parameters, including the fuel lines, injectors, gaskets, or rubber parts, or rings, O-rings, and the work. Besides, of course, you know, the efficiency, which is probably going to be little less. Although, to be honest with you, I still haven't been able to test it to be able to tell you, yes, how much efficiency less it is. But yes, as public have been claiming that there has been 3 to 5% less efficiency as far as the average is concerned, and pickup also is low. You really don't know about the pickup and things unless you have the gadgets to test, and then only you can start calling them as actual tests. But nevertheless, even for the older vehicles which are 10 years and 15 years and older, you really have to now make sure that once you are going to put those vehicles away, you have to empty their fuel tanks, put some diesel into it, empty their fuel lines, clean up the carburetor, give a injection of oil into the carburetor before switching off the engine from turning, so that the insides of the engine, which are where you have combustion chamber and there is no lubricant, that should not remain dry. And in any case, you cannot stop humidity from getting into the carburetor and into the engine upper cylinders. So it will definitely have a very disastrous result if you don't do all these things to preserve these cars.
All right, Tutu sir, thank you so much for your time. Tahseen,
One more
yes.
thing I would like to add for the public.
The
Yes, Mr.
exact
Dhawan.
One
the
more thing I'd
exact
like
words
to add
of
for
the
the
Attorney
public
General
is,
R. Venkatramani sir was 20, and I quote him, 20% ethanol petrol blending is something which the government is now trying to experiment. I'm quoting him on TV, I've tweeted it and I put the video out. And the government removed a PIB press release saying that it's not true. Can you believe how they lie to us?
Yeah, this
These
is
are, I'm
clearly
quoting him
damage
verbatim.
control. As I said, I mean, this is experiments with ethanol, and Tutu sir said laboratory on the road. And I mean, I can only add, are we a nation of lab rats? That the experiment is happening on us live. I mean, this could have happened, Tutu sir, in a contained environment by, say, an agency like ARAI with the
yes,
reports released publicly that this is what we found. That is how experiments are done. You don't just implement something and call it an experiment. Tutu sir, you were saying something.
yeah, I have one advice there, primarily because of my personal experience in automobiles now for the last 65 years plus, and that is, to prevent any untoward uh, after effect of these petrol. I recommend 0.05 percentage of 2T oil to be added to cars which are less than BS4. That will preserve them from deteriorating and from the engine seizing if those vehicles are not used on regular basis. And of course, for vehicles which are even older, it's even important to give, besides that oil thing, you must not have E20 petrol in the tank, because that will give you negative results at the end of the day.
This is very, very sound advice, sage advice. But Mr. Tutu Dhawan, do you suggest? By the way, is Tutti oil the same oil that was put in scooters and bikes back in the day?
Exactly. This is a very highly lubricant oil, and that was the reason it was used in engines which were two-stroke engines, and they did not have oil in the chamber. So with the result, this was the only source of oil supply to the entire engine, including the crank area, where the crank also moves besides the pistons and so on.
Tutu sir, sorry, you just generated some interest. So one more question. My question is, for a bike or a car which is say BS4 or older, what is the proportion of 2T oil that will go? For instance, in a bike which is say BS4 or BS3, how much 2T oil should I put? Because see, there is no standard.
It will be absolutely safe if you put in 0.05% of 2T oil in petrol when you're tanking up at a gas station. Now, even at gas stations, you do get small pouches of 2T oil, so use them accordingly to prevent any such backlash from engines being underperforming or getting seized.
Okay, very interesting. Viewers, Tutu Dhawan sir says that 0.05 percentage of 2T oil can be mixed to the proportion of petrol that you put in your car or a bike which is BS4 or older. Now you can calculate. So if you're putting in, you do the math yourself. So if you're filling the tank 100%, 0.05% of that can be 2T oil. So calculate the grams accordingly. I think this is really, really sound advice. Yes, Tahseen, very quickly, sir.
No, it's great advice, but this is what we've come down to do. We have to calculate all this. I mean, why can't it just be simple? I mean, calculate this. Can't we, don't we as tax paying citizens deserve a simple, non-complicated life? When I buy a two-wheeler or I buy a car, I pay my tax 15 years in advance or 10 years in advance. Not for all this nonsense to happen. I mean, I'm very grateful sir gave a calculation that saving vehicles, that is sir's greatness. But imagine the complication. Every time I fill my bike, I have to calculate shit here. Isn't life supposed to become easier than become more difficult? Matlab, I have terrible roads, terrible infrastructure. I pay taxes, I pay GST. In some places, I pay cess on my bike. I pay insurance. I am treated like a piece of garbage. The government experiments on me, and now the petrol pump I have to also sit and calculate how to save my bike. So why is the government taking money from me? What nonsense is going on? And again, I'm very grateful Sir's calculated this, but that's Sir's thing. What is the life of a common person? Imagine someone has to go to office, sit here and do this. Is this our job to do? Just give us choices: E0, E10, E5, E10, E15, E20, E85. And also, by the way, Sanket, the E85 thing we spoke about on the show came correct. 3 cars sold. Look at the money you spent to make 3 cars. 3 Wagonars sold E85. We discussed that on your show. So, who's coming up with these brain dead zombie ideas? And then you tell them, they say you're anti-national. George Soros has funded you. Somebody's funded you. I mean, can we like now go and have a serious, mature conversation? Is this a government or is this some kind of juvenile children and spoiled babus running the show in our country?
Well, let's see. I mean, if I get credible information, I'll be more than happy. And that is the purpose of a broadcast like this, to inform and educate and build analytical intelligence in the discourse. Thank you very much, Tutu Dhawan, as well as Tahseen Poonawalla, for your time.